That brings us to item number 16, which are parameters for the fiscal year 1920 general fund budget. Mr. Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. Gant. Members of the board, we have a blank screen. There we go. Purpose of this is to kind of give you a little bit of insight on what's happening with the state budget as we speak, and to hopefully prepare you for what we're going to be presenting to you later on in April. And just as a reminder, I just wanted to go over very briefly what we had done last year in our budget. Excuse me, just as to let you know, we increased our budget last year by $5.4 million roughly, which was 3%, and we added a number of positions in our budget, number of certified staff, some support staff. We also had some additional costs for our school resource officers due to increased cost and adding one at the center. We also had some additional contracted health case managers, and I am pressing buttons that I don't when I shouldn't be. We also, get back on that one, thank you. We also had contract days for our district safety officers that were increased from 190 to 240 days. We also did away with the 12% salary reduction for any retirees that had come back to work. Paid a $500 loyalty bonus to all of our district employees. And then, of course, we had a 2% cost of living raise for all of our employees. This is just a big recap of it. As you can see, we did not have any millage increase last year, so our projected revenues were approximately $898,000 less than what our projected expenditures will be for the current fiscal year. Just give you some dates to remember as far as the state budget goes. As you can see right now, the budget has been completed by the House. That was done last week. It is expected that the Senate will take it up April the 2nd, or the week of April the 2nd, Senate Finance Committee, excuse me, and then it will go on from there, and hopefully we'll have an approved state budget, if all goes well, by May the 9th. Our district budget calendar tonight, obviously we're doing the parameters. Hopefully have the first reading on April 8th, our discussion reading on April 8th. I can't even read. Our first reading on April 29th, and then hopefully our final reading will be May 20th with our public hearing as well. This is what we kind of expect for next year. Just to let you know this, the House Ways and Means is based on what I've done here. The House Ways and Means that approved the budget on March the 5th, and what's included in here was a part of that. Like I said, the House finished the budget process last week, and there were no notable changes with funding, so none of the information I'm going to present to you right now has changed. But I will make you aware of a couple things that we're looking at here. If you would, you take a look at the statewide weighted pupil units for the current year, 2018-19, was 997. That was adjusted due to the change in the poverty computations for our poverty weightings of the EFA. So that was reduced down to 988,877 statewide weighted pupil units. The reason I tell you that is because we are currently, in the current fiscal year, at 989, which is higher, obviously, than that number, and the base student cost has been capped this year. So in other words, it was appropriated at 2645. We're at 26. Excuse me. We have been capped at 26. It was a $5 cap. We're at 2485. I'm sorry, and then we're capped at 2480 due to the increased weighted pupils in the state. State says we should be funded at $3,095 base student cost next year, but because of some changes that were made in this budget, which I'm going to mention to you here shortly, I can't really give you what they've appropriated the base student cost to be. So what has the Ways and Means done? Well, what they've done is they've combined a lot of big line items. They've taken our EFA line item of $1.8 billion. They've combined it with our EFA fringe, which is pays for all our fringe benefits for our students, of $788 million. And they've also added $159 million in to fund the teacher raises of 4% that are being done in this budget here. The problem with that is, I guess, is that although they've rolled all these numbers, all these big dollars together, they have not changed the funding methodology on any of them, so I'm not sure that they've made things any simpler for us. We're still going to have 3 different funding methodologies for those funds that have been rolled in that one big line item. They've increased the starting pay for teachers to $35,000 in the state minimum salary schedule, which means teachers in the first 5 cells of the teacher salary schedule will get greater than a 4% increase. It'll average anywhere from 8 to 10%, if I remember correctly. I mentioned earlier the base student cost and why I can't give you a figure on that. I just want to let you know that current base student cost, like I said, is $24.85. It was capped due to the increased weighted pupils statewide to $24.80 as of the 45th day this year. The projected base student cost for 2020 using the same numbers here would be $2,467. That is, and the reason I tell you that is because in 2008, right before the bottom fell out of our economy, the appropriated base student cost was actually higher, $2,476. So why am I telling you all this? Because they're giving us a lot of money for teacher raises, but they're not giving us a lot of money for anything else. Based on just a simple calculation in my head, and we're going to be running these numbers and we're presenting them to you later, we're estimated to get an additional $4 million next year from the state. As of right now, I'm looking at our expenditures to increase somewhere in the neighborhood of $9 million based on what we're currently doing without adding anything. The state is also going ahead and put out some capital improvement project money for poor school districts, I should say. Anything with a 70% or higher poverty district with a higher poverty weighting will get that. We do not qualify. There's $20 million of non-recurring instructional materials, dollars for instructional materials, and then $19.3 million for some additional school buses. So, what are you going to be looking at when we present this to you in April? We know we're going to have a 1% employer contribution increase for retirement. We're going to continue to get a 1% increase through 2022. We're going to have, we assume, increased health insurance premiums for the employer because there's been money appropriated for that, although we have not set any type of projection on what that percentage would be. As of now, based on the House, there will be a mandated 4% cost of living for all teachers. If we follow that, it'll be a 4% cost of living for all of our district employees. All of our employees will also get step increases that are eligible. And then also will, if any staff is needed to meet our board policies, that we will have that with for you also. So, right now, we don't know a lot. We've gotten information on half of what we can do for our millage increase. Right now, we know our consumer price increase is 2.44%. We should be getting the population growth factor later this month. As of right now, we are looking at the ability to raise approximately 6.3 mils based on just the CPI alone, if that is needed. And that concludes my very brief overview of the budget and what we're facing, but I will be glad to try to answer any questions.
Mr. White.
Did I hear you correctly say that we're getting $4 million additional money, and but our costs are going to go up $9 million?
The estimate that we've received from the state is approximately $4 million increase in our funding, and just a ballpark and answer your question, yes.
So how do we give a 4% raise if we're I mean, we're getting four more million and our costs going up 9 million, so we're in that a deficit of 5 million?
That is indeed.
So where do you get a 4% raise from?
Well, now, understand that there's $159 million in this budget to pay for that, so the $4 million that we're getting is, majority of that is going towards teacher raises. To answer your questions, we're going to have to cut costs or raise revenue some other ways. Now, it's still early in the process, so I don't want to totally, shock everybody with that, because it is usually pretty ugly when we start out, so hopefully there's been some information that we've been asked about from the Senate that, well, hopefully they'll have a little bit more money to deal with and maybe change the way the House has done some things, so I'm not totally pessimistic about seeing some increased revenue when it comes out of the Senate. It's early in the game. I don't know what the value of a mill is going to be for us yet. So there are a number of ways, or a number of things we're going to be looking at, I guess, to close that gap.
So does the 9 million include the 4% raise?
Yes, sir. That's for all of our employees.
So what's your guess of what the millage would, based on last year, how much would the millage you can raise this year cover out of that 5 million deficit?
Well, if, like I said, I don't know what the population increase is going to be, but based on what we're looking at, just with that, I mean, we're not going to be able to raise, it'd be shy of $1 million based on what we know now.
So if nothing changes, you're going to have to find about 4 million to cut.
Yes. But like I said, I feel like some things will change, but I just want to let you know that it's not as pretty as some people will make you think it is right now.
Ms. Hammond?
Mine's along with Mr. White's. So just to get this straight, the 4% teacher raise that they have passed in the House, of course, it's at the Senate now, correct? They haven't. But that 4% raise is for sure, and they are giving the money to every district across the state for that, correct?
That's correct. And it's based on a teacher's certification and years of
Right.
experience.
Okay. But then, and it's that 4% just for teachers, or it's all staff? All employees?
Only teachers are mandated.
Mandated, okay. So it's up to individual districts if they give a 4% raise to teachers, whether they do that to all employees that are non-certified?
That's correct.
Okay. It's just hard to, I'm kind of like with Mr. White's question. They were given, the money is there from the state for that 4% raise.
Ms. Hutchison?
Does this, the $4 million for the money for teacher raises, does that cover the cost of the benefits such as health care, et cetera?
That does not. We've gotten, based on the from the, I guess, the estimates that we've received from the state, they've put no new money in for fringe benefits. They put no new money into the base student cost, obviously. So no, we're not receiving. That is just for the costs that I gave you include all of that, fringe, salaries, and everything. But the money that we're looking at is for salaries only.
Well, that's not real helpful, is it? That they mandate, it sounds like an unfunded mandate, because we're certainly required and want to provide benefits to our employees, but it is definitely an unfunded mandate not to include money for the fringe benefits.
That is true.
Mr. Cates?
To continue that point, while they have committed, and again, it's in the Senate. We don't know
That's right.
yet what it'll look like when they get together and it comes out. But there is no commitment beyond year one to fund the raises beyond year one. So that 159 million, I think it was, would cover year one, but they may or may not provide that going forward.
Well, I guess there's never a guarantee, but they would be hard pressed to pull that money, honestly,
Okay.
once it's there.
Mr. White?
Can you, I mean, we face this dilemma almost it's a rare occasion when we don't face this dilemma when you start out with a deficit, but Just summarize again what the 9 million are cost, because that's something that happens constantly. Costs go up without adding in additional services or people, but just, can you summarize again the 9 million
Sure.
cost increase?
And I did this just sitting here, so I mean, please, these numbers, are subject to change, but you're looking at salaries and fringe for all of our employees, okay, just for the 4%, that's approximately $6 million. We're looking at 1% retirement increase, which is roughly $1.5 million. And then a step increase for our employees is in the neighborhood of $1.5 million. So that's where the 9 million came from.
So is that retirement go with the 4%? Is that, or is that just for, or is that the state?
That's
state's-
just the increase that we're normally getting for just retirement, on an
That's
annual
because of the
basis.
deficits in the state retirement?
That's
fund?
correct.
And we're going to have a 1% increase through what year?
2022, I believe.
Mr. Richardson, most of us were given a little preview to this by one of your cohorts in another district at our annual conference, School Board Association, Dr. Harry Miley. And he didn't paint a lot brighter picture than you just painted, because the glamour shot of this is there's going to be a 4% raise, the state's going to fund it. The downside of that is we're going to pull some things away that you didn't even see it when it was pulled away. So that's unfortunate, but I'm very glad that you all work together, and I do hope the Senate, and as this thing compromises out, that things will get better. And my question was, I can't remember who asked this a minute ago, was this going to be recurring funding? But I think when they mandate a 4% across the board statewide, and it costs every district a certain amount, you're right, they'd very unlikely go in next year or 2 years from now and pull that out. But it could happen. We've lived through that in the 08, 09 era. The other thing that I became aware of today, somebody made me aware of it, is there's a bill floating through the House, and it wouldn't be a major impact, but everything when you're trying to make up this $5 million deficit, if it comes about this way, was a change to rollback taxes. And maybe that's something we need to talk to our legislators about, because it looks like instead of a 5-year rollback, which I think in the statistic I saw, it would, in Lexington County alone, it makes about $1 million difference a year. Now, we're one of 5 districts in Lexington, so, and rollback occurs when there's a change of use in property, when it's previously had agricultural use. So that's something we probably need to make our legislators aware of, and we'll do our lifting on that end. So as you see things that we need to do, let us know, because it looks like everything's going to be critical. Let me ask you on the minimum teacher starting, give me that parameter again. You said that would affect the first 5 years of it?
From 0 to 4 years, on our salary schedule and the state salary schedule, those salaries, and that's across the board from 0 to 4 for every different certification level, bachelor's plus 18, master's, the whole thing. You're looking anywhere from about a 8 to 10% increase for those salaries.
Right. And they're going to fund that starting teacher, and I assume that 0 to 4, that falls into funding, it's going to come from the state, or is that part of our deficit?
That's part of the $159 million
Okay.
that they're giving us for increased salaries.
Have you looked at this far enough to know, or has personnel looked at it far enough to know, our year 5 teacher, and I don't even know what our starting salary is now, year 5, 6 teacher, are they going to be behind some of the levels of teaching lower than that, lower number of years? Is that another adjustment we might have to look at possibly?
No, we'll be okay. The way it's structured, all of those teachers from 5 years on will get a 4% increase as well.
Okay. So
And they'll still be ahead of a year 4 teacher.
Listen, I wish they were all at, starting at $100,000, because they certainly deserve it. But, I think sometimes things get created, they don't realize, and we get to straighten it out a little bit. We have. Mr. White is so right. There's not many years we don't talk about a budget and try to figure out the dilemma we're in. And I'll just share this with the rest of the board. When we had our board officers meeting the other day, we've had some early discussion on a workshop at some point. It's too early to probably have that now because we don't know enough of the answers. So if we need to have that and we have answers that are plotted out in the near term and in the next month or so, we'll certainly try to have that to help everybody. Let's go to Ms. Hammond, and I'll come back to you, Mr. White.
I was
Ms.
just asking, with Ms. Hutchinson's question about the fringe benefits, would they not, they would not go up because they got the 4% raise? Wouldn't it be the same? Or does that make the fringe benefits go up? I was just wondering from
It
her
makes,
point.
because it's based on a percentage of the
So it
salary,
would be-
most
it
of
would
them.
go
Health
up.
and dental, not necessarily, but any retirement.
That'd be part of that money that we're talking about of the increase. Thank you. That made me think.
Mr. White.
Remind me again what you said, the step increase, you said is approximately $1.5 million, and based on last year's millage rate, we would have gathered how much this year? About $1 million?
Well, based on last year's millage rate and what I know we can raise now would be a little shy of $1 million, being $950, somewhere in that neighborhood.
So really, I mean, to put all this in context for the board, this is sort of the classic problem, that the step increase is statutory and it's mandated, and we never quite, even a millage increase is not enough to cover a step increase. So we're coming out of pocket or we're cutting. And that's just a classic problem that starts every budget. And then on top of this, we have these, you know, the mandated raises, and then do you have parity with all the employees, and how do you fund retirement? So we never, I mean, you hear all these discussions about millage, but we never get our step increase funded with millage. I mean, it just doesn't happen, but we have to do it.
Well, I'm somewhat optimistic because we have had some questions from the Senate, and we provided some fiscal impacts from every district on what the cost of a step increase is to us. So apparently they're looking for more money to send our way, so hopefully that will happen.
Any other questions?
I had one, it's not about that. On the slide that's got House Ways and Means recommendations, that aid to districts technology funding, it eliminated that 12 million. Was some of that where you were adding back in for us? Because they're cutting that out, am I understanding that right? At
That's
least in the
correct.
House.
We are not, and that was about $200,000 to our district this year, the
Okay,
current
because
year.
it says 12, yeah. And then,
But just so you know, it was cut from previous years from about $500,000.
and then, I think I know the answer to this, I'm just really asking for the public. The 10 million for school safety program, SROs, this really doesn't affect us, that money they're giving, because we already have our own.
That is
Am I
correct.
correct? Okay, thank you.
Mr. Richard, I want to thank you. You included, I think, in our packet, a budget overview, and that's especially helpful, I think, for all of us, just to remind us what makes up our budget, some of the basic parts of it, and I appreciate you putting it in there as we work through this.
Yes, sir.
And we always like it when you come with a big smile on your face, because the minds have come together and come up with some funds for us, but this isn't sounding really good from the outset, so I hope it'll get better. Again, Dr. Miley painted the same or very similar picture about some of the highlights of this, the glamour pieces, and the other pieces going away. So
Well, I've spoken to Dr. Miley a couple of times over the last few days, and we're talking about trying to sit down and talk with some of our senators to get them on board on what's happening to us as well.
Well, and as you know, the School Board Association sponsors 2 days at the Capitol where we are able to go over and help discuss issues with House and Senate members. So if you see any of these, one of those dates is already passed. The next one's coming up in April. But if you see a specific line that you want us to carry that message, please let us know.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Thank you very much. That brings us to item number 17 for discussion, proposed revisions to Board Policy GBEC, drug and alcohol-free schools and workplace, and GBEC-E, notice to employees, shown in Exhibit E. Dr. Jakes.
Yes, sir. You've referenced this policy and exhibit, and this was originally adopted by the board in 1973. So it has been revised 11 times, most recently a decade ago in 2009. So it is time to bring it forward again this evening. In order to summarize, I'll note that we are bringing forth a slight modification to the policy with a component for reasonable suspicion drug testing. This would be a vehicle that we could use in the event that a supervisor observed something that yielded a reasonable suspicion that drugs or alcohol may be at play. We have a section for employees. We also have a section for employee drug testing and a section for students. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Board have any questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. Appreciate you bringing the changes. It's like it was 2009. We'll promise we're not going to wait 10 years again to do this.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That brings us to item number 18, which is our locally designed elective courses. And Mr. Giuliano, I'll let you carry us through this.
Thank you, Mr. Gant, members of our board. I'm bringing forward today courses for our locally designed elective courses, if you wouldn't mind going to Exhibit F. We have courses there that these courses are currently offered in School District 5, but our state has made some changes to the coding. So now the coding that we've been using in the past is no longer recognized by the state. Thus the need for us to bring these courses forward to the board for local board approval. This approval, because they are elective courses, we do not have to take these to the State Department of Education for approval. Because they are elective, our local school board can approve these courses. So the courses that I have brought forward are Journalism 4 Newspaper Production, and we have a college preparatory course for that and also an honors section of that. And then Journalism 4 Yearbook Production, and again, college preparatory and honors. And then the other course that we have is Student Government / Leadership 1, 2, 3, and 4. I would like to draw attention to some of our teachers. They've had a long day, certainly at school today, but they saw the need to be here tonight because they are the teachers in these courses, and they see the value that these courses have on the impact of our students daily. So I'd like to draw attention to the teachers, and these are the ones that could make it tonight. We have Billy Williams, Lori Humphrey, Ryan Cole, Carolyn Diaz, Jeanette Conti, Deborah Gaskin, Patricia Malden, Maurice Thomas, and Amy Metlock Green. These are our teachers for these courses, so I would like to recognize them for being here late with Tuesday morning right around the corner.
Well, thank you.
Again, they are the experts of these courses, but I just want to highlight some of the what these courses offer to our students. So if you look at the attachment, you'll see the descriptions for each of these courses. And what we have for journalism is we currently offer Journalism 1, 2, 3, and then you see 4 here. Again, we offer these now, but because of the changes in state codes, we need a locally board-approved code, which is the reason for bringing it tonight. This is a process where our students, basically these Journalism 4 classes would be for our seniors. Because if they take the pattern of electives throughout Journalism 1, 2, 3, and 4, most of these are for our seniors that would be taking these courses. They have the path that they can take through newspaper or through yearbook, depending on which path they so choose within those 2 courses. And then also we have our Student Government and Leadership courses, and these courses are for student body officers and class officers. These courses are the reason that we have so many events across our schools. Without these student government and leadership courses, it'd be very difficult for our students because if they had to do this after school, they'd have to choose doing student government and leadership over taking athletics or band or whatever else they may do after school. And just to name of the few of the activities that our students create through these courses, 36 offerings of activities on average that our schools and our students do based upon student government and leadership. To name a few, staff recognition, pep rallies, movie nights, thankful campaigns, diversity campaigns, SIC meetings and SAC meetings, winter giving celebrations, Spirit Week, pep rallies, basketball tournaments, teacher breakfasts, I could go on and on about all the activities that our students do through these courses with the strong leadership of the teachers that you see in the audience today. So these courses, again, have been approved. Let me go back. They have been in the past approved through the state, but we need to change the codes based upon some changes they've made. And all these courses currently are offering that we'd like to continue offering here in School District 5. At this time, I'd like to open up for any questions you may have.
Mr. Cates.
I want to thank you for bringing the courses forward. We hear a lot in the public at large across the country that public education is one size fits all. And my observation is that it's far from true, especially in District 5. I have a student, my son, that a teacher sought him out and said, you know, I see leadership potential in you that you hadn't seen yet, and encouraged him to take a leadership class. From that, he's in teacher cadet, and hope that he'll sit in the audience one day as an educator. And I just wanted to say that we get in the weeds sometimes and forget about the students that are on the other end of those decisions. And I just appreciate what we do as a district. It costs money. It makes for difficult decisions for us. But at the end of the day, our 17,400 plus students are worth the effort that it takes. And I just wanted to give my voice of appreciation to what's being done.
Ms. Hammond.
I had a question. I too think this is great, and I'm especially impressed with the government leadership 1, 2, 3, and 4. I think that's the key to young people, and sometimes civics and social studies aren't put there at the top like math and science, but I would say to you that that's the leadership and the fact of understanding how the government works, because it does control our lives. And you know, what I want to ask though is on the newspaper, the Journalism 4, because there's such a movement backward about newspapers. I mean, look at the state paper, it's down to this really little thin amount. Does this, I wanted to ask some of the ones that teach this, is this more of the journalism aspect and maybe like magazines, you think about TV and what the future jobs are, it's more of, it's not necessarily in print newspaper, even though that's got the name in it. I just wanted to ask a clarification of what I've read the course description, but I'm thinking, is that still very popular since you don't see as many newspapers as we see journalistic style things on TV, like, you know, the magazine shows instead of reading a newspaper?
And the reason the title is, newspaper, excuse me. The reason the title is newspaper is because that's recognized by the state. The state recognizes newspaper and also recognizes yearbook. So that's why the
yearbook,
title comes into those two. So that's more of the title. Although our students do a lot of writing for many different reasons, it's beyond just the newspaper. They're writing in many different ways and many different modes, whoever their audience is going to reach. They're going to try to reach their audience any way they can reach them. The reason and the purpose behind the title is based upon the fact that our state recognizes newspaper as a course.
That's my question.
Any other question? I know you're going to be bringing these forward in weeks to come, and we'll look forward to that.
Thank you.
That brings us to item number 19, which is to adjourn. Do I have a motion? Mr. White.
I make a motion that we adjourn.
Have a second? Ms. Gardner seconds. Any discussion? See none. All those in favor, raise your hand. We thank you very much. We thank the audience for being here. Thank all the teachers that stayed out late tonight. Some of the teachers, Mr. Giuliano, you asked them to stand up, and I can see on their faces they've been saying, we've been standing up all day. We don't want to stand up. So, thank you all for being here late.